Hey everyone, this is Andy, better known as Love Retro BTW on Twitter X, Threads, IG, and Cafe BTW on TikTok and YouTube. A quick update that the Cafe BTW podcast is taking a very long hiatus, but I still have something really amazing to share with you. We have a fantastic retro gaming community on Twitter X where we've crossed well over 2,000 passionate members. And if you're a lover of retro gaming, this is the perfect place to share your content, showcase your pickups, or just chat about your favorite old school games. To dive into nostalgia and become a part of the thriving community, click in the show notes on the Cafe BTW link tree or go right to my Twitter X profile on Love Retro BTW. And now, without further ado, gear up for another sensational episode of the Gamers Week podcast.
Coming up on Gamers Week podcast. Taito actually was purchased by Square Enix, becoming a wholly owned subsidiary in 2006.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm sure Square Enix is this close to reviving Little Samson.
Little Samson remaster.
Yeah, hey, why not?
No, we'll make a Little Samson remake. It'll be in 3 separate chapters.
That's
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Can we just talk like this the entire podcast?
I will lose my voice.
You do you.
Okay.
That went a little into Mickey Mouse territory.
I know. Donnie may get weird without a beard.
I always make it weird without a beard.
I mean, let's be honest, you make it weird with the beard.
That's true.
Does Sanity grow a beard every once in a while?
Nope. No, I'm patchy. I don't even, when I don't shave for 4 or 5 days, I'm like, man, this is sad. So I'm like, okay, let's shave this off before people realize if I did grow a beard, it would look kind of embarrassing. So no. I think I look good with a 5 o'clock shadow, but now that I've got more salt coming in than pepper, I'm just like, oh no, I can't keep the 5 o'clock shadow going. I don't know.
It's a 5 o'clock highlight now.
That's right.
Yeah, there you go.
Until I get to full silver fox,
Ooh, embrace the full silver fox.
There we go. I'm up for it.
All right. Are we about ready?
Whenever you are, Mr. Host.
All right. Welcome to Gamers Week podcast. Like the name says, we analyze the best, worst, and weirdest headlines of the past week in the video game industry. This is episode 112, and today is Wednesday, February 28th, 2024. My name is donniegretro, and I will be your host this evening, but I am not alone. My first co-host will do anything for a friend, including shaving her face.
Really?
You did say that the other night on the Uncut. We have Blue Williams, a.k.a. wrytersview. Blue, how are you doing this evening?
I just didn't want you to feel alone in your naked faceness. So if Ryan wasn't going to step up, I was like, sure, I'll do it. It's like, people shave their heads for each other when someone's going through cancer. It's the same kind of thing. Just because I didn't have as much to sacrifice.
Yeah, just take the peach fuzz down a little bit,
Yeah, right.
And I didn't say it as a negative. I said it as a positive. So there you go.
Uh-huh.
She's a team player.
She is. And Ryan is currently on the last leg of Taylor Swift's tour, where he says he's coming home with millions and is planning on sharing it with the podcast. We definitely will hold him to that promise. But my second co-host got his grandma into crypto, only to have her make millions and cut him out of her will entirely when she realized she was hodling more than he was.
Oh my God.
We have
Grandma.
Mr. SanityCrypto, who was previously on episode 59 of the Gamers Week podcast. Sanity, how are you this evening?
I'm fantastic. Thank you guys for having me back. It is lovely to be here and talk to you beautiful voiced people again. And looking forward to it.
We are glad to have you back. And can you tell the people exactly what you've been working on?
I've been working on a couple things for my backlog lately. I've actually been chipping away. My job went on hold for the last month, and so I've had a little extra time on my hands. Double-edged sword. But yes, It's Virtually a Podcast is still every Monday and Thursdays at 6 p.m. live on Twitch. It is rated M for mature. It's a weird show. If you like weird, come check us out. It's great.
We do love weird.
Yeah.
We have a fondness for it.
Do you want to tell everybody at home what exactly you guys talk and cover on the podcast?
Oh, goodness me. We do cover Will Sanity Eat It, which we do find food crimes on the internet. And
you better context to that real fast.
Yeah, you better specify.
but no, I keep saying, would I put it in my mouth, which is also true.
Not much better.
But yeah, we do find food crimes from the internet. And people always ask if I will actually try it or not, since I'm a very brave eater. And there's a channel point redemption to make us eat the thing we just saw. I was made to eat an entire sandwich of just white bread filled with an entire bushel of cilantro. Yeah, I know. And I hate cilantro.
Oh, God.
Yeah. We ate raw white onions with Rocky Road ice cream. That was nasty. And I could not get the onion flavor out of my mouth. So, yeah, when people redeem, we have to cringe because sometimes it's terrible. So, yeah, it's a good time. Otherwise, we cover really, really odd news stories or some weird ones. We are trying to get sponsored by The Baldo. Don't Google that. so
Don't Google
it's like a running
that.
gag, or do, depending on your
So I too like to live dangerously.
Yeah, I may have already Googled it. So
What the? Okay. Basically, just for the picture, I have questions.
I don't have the answers for you.
all these years that I've known Donnie, this might be the closest I've seen him to being speechless.
It takes a lot to take his breath away.
Let's move on.
Good idea.
All right, let's move on to our reviews, reactions, and requests. At Retro Monster says, as a Borderlands fan, mostly just of the first two games, I am hopeful but not optimistic about the movie. I am not a big fan of Kevin Hart, and this version of Tiny Tina looks even more cringe than the in-game one.
Hold comments.
At Sleep is for Tea says, the Engaged looked rad. Aside from the sideways talking, it was ahead of its time, really. They knew nobody would use phones as phones for long. What? Nobody would use phones as...
I still use my phone as a phone.
Exactly.
But not just as a phone.
But not just as a phone. No, it's so much more.
I want my beeper back.
Me too.
And at Weswell6 says, Gamers Week is the best. I don't listen to podcasts, but they are awesome, and games are awesome.
Thanks, Wes.
Wells.
That's
We
nice.
agree on both counts.
Games
Yeah.
are awesome, and so are we.
Yes. And now it's time for the...
Immediately.
Hello and welcome to Podcast Phone. You've reached the best way to find the podcast of your dreams. How can I enhance your auditory experience today? Hi, I'm a podcast enthusiast and I need something to listen to during my daily commute. But I want it to have interesting engagement. Ah, the elusive interesting engagement. Got it. Let's dive in. How about that Name That Kardashian by Smell podcast where you can play at home? What the hell? Oh, God, no. No. I was thinking more about one that had a cool, important poll. Gotcha. Buckle up, my friend. I recommend our hit podcast, Marie Curie Was a Badass Bitch and Other Polish Women of History. That does sound interesting, but no, I'm looking for the other type of poll. You asked for a different kind of poll. Would you like to know more about the pole your mom dances on? What the No, I do not. I heard you say yes. Your mom dances at the Vintage Vixen Lounge on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and at the Silver Seduction Shack on Wednesdays. Oh God, no, I said no. I mean a poll in like a survey. It wasn't even a podcast recommendation. We gotcha. How about Gamers Week podcast and their weekly very important poll? Yes, that's it, finally. F*** you, Podcast Phone. Glad we could help. And you too.
That was well done.
Oh, I'm glad you guys enjoyed.
Loved it. Thank you so much for doing that.
You're welcome. That was a fun one to record. So, yes, every Monday on Twitter, we post our VIP, our very important poll. If you would like to participate, please follow us on Twitter/X at GamersWeekPC. The question was, with all the fantastic console colors the N64 had, what color would you have added to the lineup? 19.2% of you said white, 20.5% of you said pink, 37% said metallic silver, and 23.3% said other. And let's look at some of the comments from the poll. W. Kohaku Media says, personally, I would have added a neon blacklight N64 with 4 lights on the inside corners to make it glow, powered by watch batteries.
Sick.
That's fancy. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a solid answer. At Microbrew Gamer Z says glow in the dark. Similar. Also
Again,
hot.
sick.
Yep. Sick. Samson 7.1 says NES gray. I also like that answer. Jetpack Xmas says tie-dye, camo, or Tron colors. Can't argue there.
Tron.
Yeah, Tron could be pretty dope. Maugak says a magic eye pattern to distract me from the terrible design. Found Ryan's alt.
What question or what image would you see when you looked at it, though? Would it be like a Super Nintendo would pop out of it?
It's not a schooner, it's a sailboat.
A scooter is a sailboat, stupid head.
God, don't make me get into a Mallrats quote with battle with you, Donnie.
Oh, I'll do it all day, every day. And you know they're coming out with another one.
Oh, God.
Yes.
I wonder if it'll be good. Kevin Smith still has the touch. I think so.
I think so.
Yeah. So what did you guys think for the colors of the N64? What was your guys' choice?
I think they should make a black one. And I know there was like a dark gray one, but it wasn't really black. It should have been super matte black, like looking into the void black. Appropriate
Goth
for a
girl
goth
answer.
living room. Yeah.
I was going to say goth girl answer confirmed. Yeah, so, no, that's great. I honestly think the glowing is a good idea, but the NES gray would have been a great throwback. I think, colored up with that little bit of dark gray and the regular gray. I think that would have been a great classic to have.
Yeah, definitely use the 2 different colors, the light gray, the dark gray for the top and bottom, and then maybe a little bit of the red lettering on the N64 somewhere. I think that would have been cool.
What about like the burgundy for the Famicom?
No, that's ugly as sin.
They could really do it up with the really short controller cords too.
Yeah, God.
What about you, Donnie?
Before I give my answer, I would say that I like the black option. I know that there is a deep, dark, bottomless pit black color that I've seen people use, like in a paint color. And it's really like super, like you're almost like you're staring into the void. And I think that color would be awesome.
Are you talking about Vanta Black? It's
I
like
think
the
so,
one.
yeah.
It's like a special coating, but you're not supposed to touch it with your hands. So good. It'll go great on your shelf and never touch it.
You're not supposed to touch it.
Because it's made with like carbon fiber tubes that like make up the paint itself. So that's what takes in all the light and doesn't allow any out. So if you like touch it with your hands, I think you mess it up or something like that. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So it can't be used for camo on clothes or anything like that. Sorry, military.
Yeah. But my answer is probably along the lines of either a glow in the dark one, because that's badass, or something with Tron. I love Tron. I love Tron Legacy, not so much the original Tron, but Tron Legacy, and just how the neon accents of their suits juxtapose the darkness. I love that. So give me something like that. Give me something that glows in the dark. Because, hey, I like playing video games in the dark. And if I'm playing a horror game with something like that sticking out and just like the glowing in the dark, I feel a little bit safer. I don't have a nightlight on. It's almost like, hey, I'm there to protect you. So I like a glow in the dark design.
I thought you were going to say something like neon pink, like that outfit that you wore to PRGE, but with the orange and green color splashes.
Yeah,
like Toe Jam and Earl game just threw up all over the console.
Hey, I wouldn't mind that either. If somebody were to design a 90s themed one with it looked like Saved by the Bell and Toe Jam and Earl had a baby, I would dig those colors as well.
My God, I'm having a seizure just thinking about that.
And now let's take a look at our patron shoutouts.
We couldn't do what we do without the help of our gorgeous patrons. Here are the generous folks supporting Gamers Week on Patreon. The Red Ox PDX family, including Shannon and Luke, Zach Huge Thanks, Number One Blue Sick Voice Fan, John Baran, Sassy Sony, Evo Lust, Ry's Secret Best Friend, Mega Retro Man, Gamatroid, Mora Deeb, Michael LeKite, Emo-esque, Bill Tucker, The Real Retro Game Brews, Fruitcakes Pickled Pepper, Ducks with Thick Thighs, Wizard of Zardoz, Bops and Dugnut, Loud Moth, Retro Blast Pat, Great Siam Man 81, B&T Zilla Guy, The Mad Milkman, Seven Castle Forest, Crunchy Kong, Sheriff Snacks, Frank Grande, Love Retro BTW, Steven Sand, Ramboski, Terry Kinnair, Doongie Forever, Ducks in Disguise, Don't Make Me Pull Over This Car, Games with Coffee, Hybrid Divide, Matto 1606, You Fall Before Me, and Davey PGH. If you like what you hear today, and we really hope you do, please consider joining us on Patreon. Your support helps cover the cost of producing the show, as well as other cool stuff we'll be doing, like prizes and giveaways. You'll also gain access to our weekly patron-only bonus cast called Gamers Week Uncut, Patrons with Benefits. Visit patreon.com/gamersweek or follow the link in the show notes to learn more.
And now let's take a look at our headlines for the week. Our headline segment is proudly sponsored by the Retro Game Club podcast. It's a fantastic family-friendly retro gaming podcast. In each episode, Rob and Hugh pick 2 games to play and discuss, as well as news, interviews, and other topics. Right now, they're talking about how the original shareware episode of 1993's Doom will be released as a free update for owners of Husqvarna's robotic lawnmower range automower, Nera. Visit them at retrogameclub.net or follow the link in the show notes. And currently, I have 2 links open in my browser, one for Baldo and one for robotic lawnmowers by Husqvarna.
The algorithm is so confused by you.
What will Google AdWords do with you?
I'm going to see some weird shit on my Facebook. I know.
Only gets weirder. No, I think that's great. You know, it's like Dad's like, go mow the lawn. And you're like, oh, fine. Like, he's been out there for an hour. He's playing Doom again. Damn it.
You're following behind the actual auto lawnmower with its screen up, and you just got a controller wirelessly connected to it, and you're playing Doom. Next thing you know, you cut your leg off because you're not paying attention.
Right.
Art imitates life, right? All right, from Games Radar. After turning the Switch into a massive emulator, Nintendo files a lawsuit implying emulators are unlawful and only good for piracy. Nintendo has filed a lawsuit alleging that emulators are explicitly used to unlawfully play pirated games away from their intended consoles. In a claim that seems to conveniently forego the Nintendo Switch's popularity as an emulator, earlier this week, Nintendo filed a lawsuit against Switch emulator Yuzu, alleging that the software had helped enable illegal downloading of 1 million copies of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom prior to the game's release last summer. The company claims that a spike in Yuzu's Patreon donations after a leak of the game the week before the launch was the result of people signing up to the emulator so they could play Tears of the Kingdom for free. In a copy of the lawsuit filed on February 26 and available to view via Scribd, Nintendo writes that a video game emulator is a piece of software that allows users to unlawfully play pirated video games that were published only for a specific console on a general-purpose computing device. Nintendo is technically correct in that emulators do allow users to play pirated games, but that's not really the whole story. Emulators also allow players to play games they haven't pirated. And, as pointed out by emulation expert and YouTuber Demetrios Giannakis, the Nintendo Switch might just be the most widespread example of that. Via the Nintendo Switch Online, subscribers can play emulated versions of a host of old Nintendo games, each of them initially published only for a specific console. Acknowledging that exact legality around emulation remains in some terminal gray area. The fact remains that Nintendo seems to have painted itself into something of a difficult spot here. The applied suggestion that all emulators are for piracy except the one we charge for doesn't seem to hold up very effectively, particularly when any legitimate emulation provider will typically go through great lengths to avoid ties to piracy. And if the Switch truly is the best-selling emulation machine out there with nearly 140 million consoles sold, it certainly becomes harder for Nintendo to argue that emulators are exclusively used to play pirated games. Yeah. It's completely true. It's like, hey, pay for our emulator, but all emulators are bad, except ours, guys.
It's like you remember Napster, right? You could download all the music, and then eventually they started sending nasty threat letters, cease and desist letters to anybody who actually downloaded it.
Yeah.
Or downloaded the music. So why not approach it like that? I don't know if it's just not cost effective, but instead of arguing continually against emulation, which some courts have ruled in favor of, why does Nintendo not just say, well, they've stolen our stuff? Because that's the real problem. It's not the emulator, it's that they stole their stuff.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's a better way to put it.
Yeah. And 1 million copies? Is that a right number? That sounds like a whole lot. I mean, I could just see if people are so excited, it comes out. There might have been 1 million clicks to download said thing. But I mean, and yeah, that does take a chunk out of, a release's, win sales and finances and all that kind of stuff. But that's not the only, be like, oh, this one thing happened. All emulation is piracy. It's like, I do have a bunch of old retro games, and some work only sometimes. I remember on the previous episode, you guys were talking about like your best technique to get the Nintendo cartridge working and everything. I blew into the cartridge, by the way. It worked every time. I had the special way you blow in, and it makes this whistle if you blow on one part, and that would always make it work, because apparently I have magic spit to make it work. Anyway, some of them don't work anymore because I spit into all of them. Because I spit all over my cartridges. But now I would like to play them with less of a hassle. So if I could emulate the ones I already own, I'm in the legal right, correct?
Correct. Yes. For emulation, basically, if you own a copy of the game, technically it's legal for you to go out and download that ROM and then play it and whatnot.
And that's all I do, Donnie. That's all I do. I swear. I own every game I emulate.
So do I. I've got just a basement full, a vault full of games that I own. And yeah, I have all these ROMs because they're backups. That's all they are. They're backups. And
you're a responsible gamer and collector.
I am, sir. Yes, I salute you as a responsible gamer. That is the idea that came about with emulation. It's like, okay, you can have this ROM as a backup for a game that you already own. Now, granted, people don't do that because most of these games that are out there for the older consoles, they're too freaking expensive to go out and buy on their own. And Nintendo's not selling these games anymore. Sega's not selling these games anymore unless they package them up. Some of the games the developers don't even have anymore. They don't have the source code to be able to distribute these games again for us to play on modern consoles. So we have to resort to emulating these games that are just too expensive because on the secondary market, we can't afford them. And B, these games are not there anymore for Nintendo to distribute or sell to us because they're gone. They're lost to the ether. Source codes are gone.
Yeah, and Little Samson, like nobody's going to play that by buying a $3,000 open loose cart just to be like, I've always wanted to play this. It's like, yeah, okay, you're not taking any slices of Nintendo's pie by emulating a game that was released 30 years ago. It's there's plenty of defenses for it, which is why, as Blue said, it was proven to be out of the gray and actually into the clear by some courts. I think this is Nintendo just being Nintendo. Just suing everybody they can.
It sounds exactly like that. And if I'm not mistaken, Little Samson is a Taito property, not Nintendo. So if that developer were to have that source code, absolutely they could partner with Limited Run and say, hey, we're going to produce physical copies of Little Samson for you guys to have, for you retro collectors to have. And I guarantee you that would drop the price of a Little Samson cart now that there's another similar cart out there on the market.
Yeah. Does Taito still exist, though, or were they gobbled up ages ago? I wonder.
That's a good question.
Man, how much would that piss off collectors who had actually paid for a copy of Little Samson?
Oh, piss them off. That's fine.
Suddenly there's several $1,000s worth of investment. Sorry, bud.
Yeah.
Taito actually was purchased by Square Enix, becoming a wholly owned subsidiary in 2006.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm sure Square Enix is this close to reviving Little Samson.
Little Samson remaster.
Yeah, hey, why not?
No, we'll make a Little Samson remake. It'll be in 3 separate chapters.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Now, I can get on Nintendo's side because of the fact that it's a newer game that hadn't yet been released or was releasing. That I can totally get on Nintendo's side. For anybody who's taking a copy of a game and making it available for the mass public as it's going on sale and you're giving it away for free.
Yeah, no argument there.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love the hacker mentality and all that stuff and getting stuff for free, I am in Nintendo's corner in that regard. But once the Switch goes away, once we're 3 or 4 generations away from them not selling the Switch anymore, having no physical media in store, not selling anything online or in their store, then yeah, go ahead and emulate it to your heart's content.
Especially because Nintendo has a history of closing storefronts so that digital-only games just disappear forever.
Exactly.
Womp womp.
All right, next up from VentureBeat, Peter Levin joins Realm Board to adapt gaming IP into podcasts. Independent podcast network Realm has appointed Peter Levin to its board of advisors in a bid to break into gaming. Levin currently serves as a managing director and co-founder of Griffin Gaming Partners. Peter Griffin? His experience as the former president of Interactive Ventures, Games, and Digital Strategy at Lionsgate, and the co-founder and CEO of Nerdist Industries, positioned Levin to bridge the gap between gaming and podcasting. Realm works with leading entertainment brands such as Warner Brothers, Netflix, and Marvel to adapt their IP into podcasts. Some of their award-winning adaptations include Harley Quinn and the Joker, Sound Mind, and Orphan Black: The Next Chapter. In addition to working with globally recognized IP, Realm also has experience building a large audience. Realm's originals have been translated into 12 languages and reach listeners in over 200 markets globally. Transmedia adaptations of games have been steadily on the rise. Last year, gaming, film, and TV adaptations set a new high point for both commercial and critical success with hits like the Super Mario Bros. Movie and The Last of Us. However, podcast adaptations have been less common. Realm has a head start, creating video game-inspired shows like Control-Alt-Destroy. Prior to Levin joining, Realm announced a multi-year partnership with IGN. Together, Realm and IGN will develop, produce, distribute, and monetize podcast titles based on major video game IP. Their first show under this agreement is an adaptation of Squanch Games' High on Life. On top of his experiences investing in gaming founders, Levin has worked on a number of gaming adaptations. These properties include Amazon Studios' upcoming Fallout series, Lionsgate's forthcoming Borderlands film, and Candy Crush's television adaptation for CBS. What? Candy Crush is getting
I was today years old when I realized Candy Crush had a TV adaptation.
Oh my God.
Oh
Angry
my
Birds
God.
I get, but Candy Crush? Dude.
Right? So, okay, I got a question. Can any Joe Schmo start a podcast
Yes.
with content that they... Okay, so you just answered my question. So, like our friend Zach Hughes thinks, he's got a podcast where he discusses and breaks down the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Could I essentially start a podcast that talks about everything Batman, or
Yes.
would I get shot down by DC?
No, you could do it. The difference here is they're adapting them into performance podcasts.
Isn't that just an old-timey radio show then?
Yeah, like an old-timey radio show.
We're bringing back the old radio style,
No
baby. Everything
kidding,
comes
man.
full circle.
Yeah.
That's Candy Crush, though. I'm sorry, I'm hung up on that. Television adaptation for CBS. Who's gonna be? Oh gosh, guys, Candy Crush. Let's binge it. Like, oh, it'll probably be good too. Damn it.
Really?
I know. Well, at least it'll probably be popular with the kids, and then everybody's going to start playing Candy Crush again. My Xbox app today, the push notification said, "Make life sweeter. Play Candy Crush now." And I was like, "Oh yeah, you own that now." Damn. But this is just their starting. Keep push Candy Crush, release the TV thing, expect Candy Crush to blow back up again. Gosh.
But yeah, to answer your earlier question, Donnie, you could make a podcast discussing all kinds of things Batman, but what you could not do is a dramatic adaptation of the Arkham series.
Why not?
Because you don't own that IP.
I mean, you could make like the fan movie. There's the Fallout movie that everybody says is actually not that bad, even though it's very campy. And it's like, again, I think as long as you're not selling it for profit, you just made it and release it, then that's fine. And I think in the sense of like, oh, I still get Patreon donations for my efforts. That's not people buying the content that you are selling. And I think that's the gray area there. But yeah, you can do a fan podcast of anything. And but I know there's a million out there. So
based on what you just said, I could, in theory, do a podcast that covers the Arkham series, like Blue said. I could do all my own sounds, all my own voices, get the AI-generated Joker voice, Batman voice, whatever, flesh out an entire story, and get people to patronize my particular podcast by being a patron, sending me money that way, and that would be completely legal.
I am not a lawyer.
Yeah, I have my doubts.
So kinda. You may get in hot water with the whole AI thing. That's still a little murky of how that's going to evolve. If you just did all the voices yourself, I think you're safe.
I think you're onto something there, because I couldn't necessarily go and do Mark Hamill's voice as the Joker, release it on my particular podcast and get money for that, because he could come in and say, hey, you're using my, everybody knows that sound, that Joker sound is me. That's my likeness. Where's my money? And now I'm being sued by Luke Skywalker for all people.
Right.
That's pretty dope.
And he might actually too, because I remember a couple years ago him being big on a thing of where you had to have like legal proof that a signature or an autograph was legit, because he was tired of people forging his autograph. So he very well may be somebody who would really, really resent you using his AI voice.
True.
I don't want to upset the force, so I'm going to go ahead and refrain
No, best
from
not to. But I mean, so legal concerns aside, if you could make a dramatic audio adaptation of a video game, what would you pick?
Sky's the limit. It's really, I mean, come on, with your level of creativity, I could look at any single game on my shelf, except for Tetris. I don't know how you'd put an audio adaptation of Tetris.
Arkanoid. Do it.
Arkanoid. Breakout.
See, I thought you'd go right into BioShock.
That was on the tip of my tongue. But you know what? I don't want to be predictable.
No, you should have been, because that would have been the right answer. Blue just knocked it out of the park while you're sitting there talking about Breakout.
You're the one that said Arkanoid. I was just going on what you said.
All right, time for our top 3 new releases. First up is Euphoria, the Saga 2, PS5, Xbox Series XS, Switch, and PC. Explore the unique and wacky world of Sunsoft's Euphoria in this exploration-based side-scrolling game. The level's terrain change each time you play, with new secrets to explore. Be charmed, comforted, and tickled by the fluffy, felt-like remake of the strange but cute world of Euphoria. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons remake. PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. Guide two brothers on an epic journey of discovery, loss, adventure, and mystery, remade for the latest generation of graphics, performance, and gameplay. Hailed by critics when it was originally released, Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons is back. Faithful to the gameplay and touching story from 2013, Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons remake features rebuilt characters and landscapes based on the original. Paired with a re-recorded soundtrack with a live orchestra, prepare for an emotional experience that will take your adventure to all new heights. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, PS5. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the second entry in the Final Fantasy VII Remake project, which retells the story of the genre-defining RPG across 3 distinct games. Iconic heroes Cloud, Barrett, Tifa, Aerith, and Red X111.
Really?
Red 8. I don't know. I always read it as Rex
13.
Red X 13. God damn it.
Where did you even get A out of that?
It's not a V. I'm sorry. Oh, Lord. Yeah, it's okay. Tear me up on Twitter, y'all. Have escaped from the dystopian city Midgar and are now in pursuit of Sephiroth, the vengeful swordsman from Cloud's past, who was thought to be dead. This new adventure can also be enjoyed by all players, even those who have yet to play Final Fantasy VII Remake or the PlayStation original. Expect a new standard of cinematic storytelling, fast-paced combat, and rich exploration across a vast world. So, what are you guys thinking of these 3? I feel like I'm already thinking it's a Wade competition here, but let's start. Donnie, you start. What are you excited of these 3?
So looking at Euphoria, I like the sound of it. A game that changes every single time you play it, that opens up, or that gives value to the replayability factor here. So I like that aspect, but I'm looking at the game and I think it's a little bit too cutesy for me. So because of that, I probably won't go towards it.
It's strange but cute.
It's just a little too cute. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. I don't remember this game whenever it first came out. It looks okay. It's like, I guess, a puzzle game, if I'm not mistaken. I can't say if I would or would not play this game. It looks visually stunning. So I'd say based on that alone, I probably would at least attempt it. And that leads us with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So I'm a little confused. Is Rebirth different than the, I guess, the remake that they came out with, like 3 separate episodes?
Well, this is episode 2 of the 3 separate episodes.
Yeah, remake was episode 1.
Yep.
Okay. I want to play this game based on my love for Final Fantasy VII. I want to see what changes they've made. I want to see this story in newer graphics, but I absolutely vehemently refuse to spend even a single solitary dollar on this game simply because they're splitting it up into 3 separate parts.
I have a bad taste in my mouth from that as well. I never bought the first remake, but my friend was like, "Oh, you got to play it. You got to play it. I know you love Final Fantasy." So he gave me his copy for PS4. That was many years ago. I have still not returned that copy, and I have still not played it because I want to wait for all of them. I don't want to just be left hanging.
It's not like you don't know what happens. It's not a book series.
I know, but they made some changes, and I just want to keep going. Back in the day, what was it? It was like, oh, insert disc 2, and I was already like, man, dang it, I have to eject this disc and insert disc 2. Okay, fine, here we go. But now I have to wait years between the releases, and that irks me a little bit. You're not Lord of the Rings, okay? You're Final Fantasy. Just release it all at once. You know it's going to sell.
Based on that fact, I probably won't pick up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth because I haven't played the first installment remake. So I'd say probably not going to pick up anything this week.
Sure.
Blue, what about you?
So Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons remake. I didn't play the original because it's supposed to be terribly, horribly, tragically sad.
I don't want those games.
I'm not here for that.
Yeah.
I don't have enough emotional room in my heart to take on the burden of a terribly sad game. So I'm going to go ahead and pass on that, even though I have heard that it is very good. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I find it's interesting that they're saying, no, it's standalone. Yes, it's part 2, but it's standalone. So even if you haven't played the original, even if you didn't play the first one, please still come give us your money for this. You can play this one.
Nice try, marketing department.
All right.
So, I know.
I tried to play the first one. I did. I got bored of it, but honestly, I've never particularly cared for Final Fantasy VII anyway. So it was probably a stretch that I was going to,
I gasped.
Into this one.
I was muted, but I gasped.
Clutch the pearls.
So I'm not going to play this, but I'm interested to find out if the game includes the big spoiler that shall not be named. And I look forward to seeing the internet explode with either A, they have changed said big spoiler event that shall not be named, or B, all the people who somehow still didn't know that it was going to happen, and it happens. So.
What, the fact that Eris dunks her wings in ranch?
Yes.
But is it ranch or is it blue cheese?
I was thinking shish kebab. Oh, sorry. No, it's a game from the 90s. You can spoil it all you want, but you're being very respectful, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I'm going to skip that one, which brings me to Euphoria. This game, it looks super cute. It's definitely got a Yoshi's Crafted World vibe. I do love platformers. And while I'm a little bit afraid that it might be erring on the side of being super easy, like Yoshi's Crafted World is, where it's more meant for kids, but of these 3, that is the one I'm most interested in.
Interesting.
Nice.
Yeah, when I looked at these, Euphoria probably was like, oh, I have some interest. If that pops onto Game Pass, I'll download it. I'll check it out. But I'm not going to be like kicking down the doors of GameStop to be grabbing it.
Midnight launch, midnight pre-release.
Oh, yeah.
You guys, let's camp out. It'll be great.
I'll bring my hibachi. No. And Brothers, I didn't know about it being sad, but now that I know that, no, I play games to relax, to blow off steam, to enjoy myself, not to cry. I don't want to feel like, and I get it. People are making art. They want art is supposed to make you feel things. And that there's a group of people out there that like those kind of like powerful games, but not for me. I'm not going near it.
Yeah. How dare you make me feel my own feelings?
Yeah, exactly.
It makes me bleed my own blood.
So for me, it would be Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Not rushing out to grab it because I don't have a PS5 and it's not a PS4 release. So I'll wait until the PS6 comes out and they release Final Fantasy VII Remastered, Rebirth, Remake, Bundled or something, and then I'll play it. But that's the one I'm most excited about.
Has there ever been a video game that has made either one of you cry?
Oh, good question. Lost Odyssey for the Xbox 360. It was made by people who had left Square Enix and they wanted to make their own RPG. And it was okay as far as a game goes, and as far as like a RPG goes, Japanese RPG. It was good. It had a good story, all that stuff, but it had these animated book sections where you had to unlock memories where, it'd have the words dance along the screen and you're starting to read it. And then it would be like, oh, and it was a rainy day. And then the screen turns rainy and you hear thunder as it's going. Oh, and then, we went to go find this. And there's this one story about these kids that were trying to go find medicine for their mom. And then they had to go out. When they finally got it, they came back and she was already dead. And they were like beating on her corpse and everything. And I was reading it and I was like, I literally started tearing up and I was like, oh my God, this is a harsh story, man. It was like they were screaming to the heavens. And I was like, what is going on? So that's the one I can remember that I was like, that game made me cry. So yeah, wow. Lost Odyssey.
That's powerful.
No game has made me cry, but the beginning of Ori and the Blind Forest.
Oh.
That did one of the ones where I had to get up and take a few laps.
Yeah, you had to clear the throat and be like,
nope, I'm not crying. Nope,
Yeah.
nope.
Please don't spoil that. That's in my backlog. I have not played it yet.
Well, I'm not going to say anything, but just good luck with that.
It's got a little bit of gravity there. It's not like the first 15 minutes of the movie Up, but it's got
right
some
up
gravity. Yeah. God, I hate that movie.
I know. After that part, I was like, I want to leave.
I know. And the rest of the movie, everybody's like, but the redemption. I was like, there was no redemption. I was sad after I left the movie theater, and I was sad for the next day or two thinking about that movie. I do not like that movie.
Nope. No, thank you.
And now it's time for our main topic of the evening.
All right, from Forbes, PlayStation lays off 900 employees across Naughty Dog, Insomniac, Guerilla, and others. The video game industry has been no stranger to mass layoffs in the last year or two in the wake of COVID-19 booms. But now we have one of the most significant reductions we've seen, this time out of Sony and PlayStation. Sony announced on Tuesday it will be laying off 8% of PlayStation employees around the world, or 900 people. In order to provide context to our thinking, Sony shared the email that went out to employees from the soon-to-be departing Jim Ryan. Layoffs will hit major PlayStation studios Naughty Dog, Insomniac, and Guerilla Games, among others. Subject to labor laws, PlayStation's London studio will close entirely, which was working on a number of VR titles. Developer Firesprite, which made the well-received VR game Horizon Call of the Mountain, will see reductions along with more layoffs across SIE in the UK.
This comes in the wake of many developments at Sony that forecast something like this was likely going to be coming. Sony has battled bloated budgets for its well-received, solidly selling single-player games, making profit margins thinner than they should be. There were indications in the Insomniac hack that larger layoffs were on the way. We already saw over 100 layoffs occur at Bungie, the Sony-owned studio. It's unclear if any of the 900 will be further cuts there. Outside of the recent blockbuster success of Helldivers 2, Sony has struggled with live service plans, including canceling The Last of Us factions after several years of development. And part of the reason the Bungie layoffs already happened was plummeting revenue in Destiny 2, which opened the possibility of a Sony takeover of management of the company. Interim CEO Hiroki Totoki specifically said Bungie needs to improve its business and its delivery timelines.
Sony has invested in hardware outside of the PS5, like PSVR 2 and the PlayStation Portal, that have served niche audiences, but it's unclear how significantly those have contributed to the bottom line relative to their development and manufacturing costs. Many of those reductions are in studios that make PSVR games, making the future of Sony's investment in VR unclear. And this is only what we know. It's a strange situation for PlayStation to be in, continuing to put out quality games, dramatically outselling its rival Xbox this console generation with record PS5 sales, but the industry is somewhat unforgiving. Of course, it's easy once again to pivot to things like executive pay and poor management decisions that lead to hundreds of employees being laid off, workers who individually likely have nothing to do with these larger picture struggles.
I liked how they said, oh, we're going to lay these people off in order to provide context to our thinking. What the does that mean?
You'll see we're not the bad guys. We had no choice. Never mind that we perhaps mismanaged our first-party studios for the last several years, and never mind that most of the PS5 exclusives are actually PS4 games in disguise. We're not the bad guys.
Yeah. No, and I love that they had like, hey, Jim, you're on your way out. You mind dropping the axe? Yeah, fine.
Will you give me an extra 0 on that bonus check? All right.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
It probably does get bonused out for being the executioner. So the new guy isn't the bad guy.
I mean, last week we were talking about Immortals of Avium Studio closing because the game just didn't sell well and there was nothing that anybody else could have done about it. But this is proof that even when you have games that sell incredibly well, like these are the studios that make Horizon Forbidden West, that make Last of Us, that make the IP that Sony is world famous for, that everybody loves. And even with those successful IP, this current AAA formula that everybody has, it's just not working.
Yeah, and I do know, like the PlayStation Portal, the PSVR 2, I mean, that's what I would waiting for a PS5 Pro, because I was like, well, if they have released the Pro, then I got a PSVR 2, it's going to have better processing, which means all those exclusive VR games would be even better. But now that they just said that they're going to allow it to hook up to PC, I don't need a PS5 Pro.
No, not at all.
Not at all, I know. But it's like, so they spent all this money for the exclusives to draw people to their console. I don't know anybody who's rushing out being like, oh, there's a PlayStation Portal, I'm now going to finally buy a PS5 when it's 2 years from the next generation year. So it's weird that it's happening everywhere when this has been the most, like 2023 was like the most amazing year for games. Like so amazing. Like everybody was buying every game and there was so much, it was one of the most hype years ever. And now it's like, oh, well, thanks for the wonderful game. Here's your pink slip.
Mm-hmm.
I think these companies got in over their heads. They got too greedy. They bought up all of these little studios and big studios thinking, oh, yeah, we're going to have all of these top tier games that are I guess now they're going to be first party. When before they weren't, we were only getting a sliver of that pie for this most popular game that we didn't create. But now we own these studios and now they can pump out all of these games and we can make all of this money. And they didn't realize the fact that it's I guess it wasn't really that big of a return on the investment, because now you have all of these different studios that you've got to take care of, and you've got redundancy. You've got people working in this studio that can do the same thing as the other people working in this studio. Do you really need all of those different people in all of these different studios working on that particular game or a separate game at the same time? I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it's just, I want to say that they didn't stop to think about the people that they were going to have to let go, but maybe they just did. Maybe they knew it. Maybe they're like, you know what? We're going to be taking all of these different development studios into the fold, and we know we're going to have to get rid of all of these people, and that's just more money that's going to be lining our pockets. And if that's the mindset, screw you, man.
I think that's the majority mindset. I think that there's a lot like being like, oh, we've laid off these people, our payroll's going to go way down, means our profit margins are going to go up. Oh, wait, our stock is falling. Why? It's like, 'cause people know what you're doing, man.
Exactly.
I think there are a lot of dirty tactics. I think there's others that, may be more innocent, like, oh man, it's getting really tough. We really need to trim the fat and we need to let some people go. Unfortunately, trimming the fat is not opting out on a bonus, it's letting people go. And so many people that have worked their whole lives to break into this industry, and then they're there, they fulfill the dream, they're working on this AAA games, and now they're out looking for another job. And I don't think any studios are hiring rapid fire right now in the wake of all this stuff going on. So it's hard to watch, even, as a consumer, just looking forward. So
to me, that's pretty much a niche role, a video game designer or developer. There's only going to be so many limited studios out there that are going to be hiring. And now you get all these people, 900 plus employees from Sony, plus all these other different people that have gotten laid off. They're vying for the same jobs. So it's not, the only other option for these guys is to go out and make their own studio, make their own game.
Yeah, you can't really cross over into movies or, other industries. Like some can. Graphic designers and animators and stuff like that. But there's people that are like, oh, I'm a AI programmer for how the enemies react when this happens. That's very, very specific. Like you're not just going to be able to go out and program for, a chatbot or something like that. It's different AI. So,
and even if they did start their own studio and make their own game, it's going to be years before they saw a return.
Yeah. Somebody's got to pay the mortgage in the meantime. So
exactly. If they didn't have the money saved up to foresee something like this, then they're not going to survive. They're going to have to go do something else.
Well, I do love that the glimmer of hope is that the fact that indie games are no longer like the redheaded stepchild. The indie. Damn it.
And I took that personally.
Okay, strike two. I don't even know what 1 was. But anyway, it's like you can make an indie game with a small team that can be gangbusters and just get you acclaim and hype so much that we wear clown makeup every time the sequel doesn't get announced.
I understood that reference.
Yeah, that's my profile picture in Discord. Now I'm just keeping my clown makeup on.
I know. But yeah, you could make like Celeste or Hollow Knight or any of these other like Vampire Survivors, Pal World. Those are all small teams making these things, and they're humongous successes. And I don't know if we can oversaturate to the point where we're like, oh, too many indie games, we're sick of it. But that does give some kind of incentive for success. But again, as you say, who's going to pay the mortgage in those 2.5, 3 years of development before you get to release? And early access. You can start asking for money within 8 months. Never mind. You guys will be fine.
Crowdfunding, baby.
Oh, yes.
You can see that Sony is realizing that it needs to make a lot of changes to the strategy that it's been having because exclusives are not paying off the way it thought it would. It's like you said, the PSVR 2, they're going to make it so you can hook it up to a computer now because they realized that not enough people wanted that dumb thing when you've got a Quest that's much cheaper. So why would you pay, like we've talked about a few times before on the show, why would you pay for a $500 PlayStation 5 and then buy the PSVR 2, which I think is another $500.
No, it's $500.
It's $500. Yeah. So $1,000 just so you can play Horizon Call of the Mountain? No, I don't think so. Obviously, nobody wanted to do that. That's why they're saying if we want to sell these things, we got to find another way to get them in people's hands. Ergo, going to PC. And it's the same thing with a lot of their exclusives eventually getting ported to PC and that becoming a new focus for the company because they're just realizing we need sales. And whatever it costs, we have to get them.
Give me Helldivers 2 on Xbox. I need it. Everybody loves it, and I can't play my Starship Troopers game. Well, I could on Steam. I just don't want to.
It was one of the things I was having a struggle with whenever I bought my MetaQuest 2 was, do I buy that or do I buy the PSVR 2? And I'm glad I went with the MetaQuest 2, even though I don't touch the VR system all that much because I get ridiculously motion sick with it. There are so many other options for access with VR games with the MetaQuest 2 than the PSVR 2. I can use the MetaQuest. I can connect it up to my Steam library and play any game that's available in VR through that, as opposed to just hoping, crossing my fingers, that Sony will expand on their VR library.
Yeah, I think Sony has just been counting too much, been a little bit too big for their britches and thinking just that the Sony name was going to command a much higher price. That's a little bit like the Apple way of thinking. Well, because it says Apple, like this charger is going to cost $600.
Right.
Yeah.
Some Apple fanboys are willing to pay that, but I don't think Sony commands that same amount of financial worship, I'll say.
I don't think so either.
No, Apple's for bougie people that have lots of money, and a lot of PlayStation, like a lot of Sony ponies out there and PlayStation diehards, were scrapping together every penny to be able to buy that PS5 when they could actually get it before a scalper did.
Right, because you're paying twice as much to a scalper.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I remember being in I was in a retro shop, a couple months after it was out, and some guy wanders in. He's like, "Do you have any PS5 games?" And the guy's like, "No." And he said, "Because I paid a scalper $1,200 for this PS5, and now I have nothing to play on it because there's not enough games." And I was like, "Oh,
big dummy,
get out."
Well, there's shovelware galore now, buddy.
Yeah, shut your mouth before everybody in the shop is going to shut it for you.
Yeah.
Do you guys hate me because I scalped 2 PS5s?
A little.
Okay.
Your glimmering shimmer has dulled a little bit, Donnie. Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. If there's money to be made, I was not going to stand idly by.
Yeah, you didn't have to do it though. You did it for the challenge.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
You did it for love of the game. But yeah, it sucks that the gaming industry is just being absolutely gutted by all these layoffs. Because in addition to these layoffs at PlayStation, EA announced that they are laying off 650 employees. And Supermassive Games is the developers behind the Dark Picture anthology. They're laying off another 150 or 90 will be laid off, and another 150 were notified that they are at risk.
Oof.
That just kind of sucks.
I know, which I think is like code for just get out. okay, while you can.
Yeah, this is your preemptive warning to go find something else.
Yeah, so it really does make you wonder, what is the gaming industry going to look like 6 years from now, 5-6 years from now, when the full effects of the titles that we'll be releasing then will be felt based on what is happening this year?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think, again, we've seen such an amazing year, and, we don't get those every year. In the 90s, we had some banger years back to back. But it's like this is going to be felt totally. Like the games coming out, are they going to lose quality or lose content? Are they going to lose, some of the amazing talent that may be removed? We may see that being like, man, it's another drought of games. Like nothing came out this year, or the stuff that did come out was disappointing. So that's a very real concern.
Are AAA games just going to go extinct?
The rise of the indies is upon us.
Well, no, then the indies will become the new AAA game, and then everybody will hate them.
The pendulum swings back and forth.
Yes.
Right.
All right, before we move on, let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsor. This segment is proudly sponsored by A Gamer Looks at 40 podcast. The show explores the history of games through the stories and experiences of the people who lived it. The show is returning on March 4th with a multi-month deep dive into the world of Final Fantasy. So this week's question is, what is your favorite video game reboot? Let Bill know your answer by sending him a tweet at A Gamer Looks at 40 on Twitter.
It's a good question. I have my answer. Do you have yours?
I do have mine. Blue, do you have yours?
I do.
Is this a Spider-Man thing? We're all pointing our fingers at each other?
You. Hey, you. Yeah.
Sanity, tell us your...
I think this is an easy answer for me. The Ninja Gaiden games on Xbox that came out in the early 2000s. I thought that was an amazing way to completely change up the format, completely change up the style, but still keep it kind of on par with the whole vibe of what the game was. You're a human ninja with like mystical powers who is the best, and he's the only one that can save the world, and you're fighting huge monsters, you're fighting hordes of armies of other people and bad guys, and it was the hardest game I had ever played in my life too, which I love those Dark Souls-y, really tough challenges where it's, controller breakingly hard. And I beat the first one all the way through, which as soon as you beat it, you release, it's called Hurricane 1, and then that makes it harder, and you beat the Hurricane 1. Then I beat that, got Hurricane 2, beat that. Then they released Hurricane 3, which is the final, and I could not beat it. And I felt so defeated. But it was, I know. Well, it's like literally, I was like, oh my God, this giant turtle boss. It's so hard. Like every time I fought it, I was like, oh, it's so hard. And Hurricane Pack 3, there's 2 turtles. And I'm like, I have to fight 2 at once. Whoa! And it just changed the whole thing. And it was beautiful. And so they released Ninja Gaiden Black later on, or Ninja Gaiden Sigma, that had all of those kind of remastered back in and everything. And I want to go replay through it again, but deep in the backlog. But that's my answer for sure.
Nice. Blue, what about you?
So I think there's several honorable mentions here that you can make. I think the rebooted Tomb Raider trilogy, really good. I think the rebooted God of War and God of War Ragnarok, really good. And those I was iffy about changing it from Greek mythology to Norse mythology. I was like, what the hell are they doing? But it worked, and they're really good games. But the one that I'm going to name is my favorite is Resident Evil 7. And yes, I'm going to consider that a reboot because the series had been going one direction. 4 was super successful. People loved it. 5 and 6 are not as well received, although they do have their fans, and they definitely weren't as successful. And Resident Evil fans, yeah, I agree. I hated them myself. But I will acknowledge that they have their fans out there. So Resident Evil fans were clamoring for the series to correct course and go back to what made it successful, which was not action, but which was terrifying horror. And
survival
they did
horror.
that. Survival horror, and they did that in Resident Evil 7. And it was so successful and so scary that when Resident Evil 8 was coming out, they shared that they got a lot of complaints and people asking them to make the next one not as scary.
Oh, snap. And I still have not played Resident Evil 7 or 8.
Oh, we got to do that. They might be streaming games.
Yeah. And also they released 7 in VR, and I saw somebody play it and I was like, oh, hell no. No.
I would love to play something like that. Absolutely. In VR.
Oh.
Well, it's your answer, Donnie.
I kind of have 2, but my primary game that, and I don't know if people would call this a reboot. I definitely think this is a reboot, was Grand Theft Auto 3. You look at Grand Theft Auto and Grand Theft Auto 2, they were top-down, mission-based still, but you never really got to see the characters. You didn't get to be involved in that story. You didn't feel like you were actually taking on the persona of the guy that was playing the game. But then comes Grand Theft Auto 3 and completely changes the action-adventure landscape. Mm-hmm. It is one of the best-selling games of all times. It basically launched that particular type of genre, mission-based action-adventure. I wouldn't call this open world. It's still a sandbox world, but still being able to drive around and not just focus on the missions or the storyline itself. You can go off and do your own thing. Doesn't have to be involved with the story whatsoever. That's going to be my pick with a
good answer.
Very, very close runner-up with the Call of Duty series. The Call of Duty series was just a strict World War II shooter. That's all it was. Call of Duty, and then Medal of Honor was all World War II. And I used to love playing Medal of Honor Allied Assault on PC. I'd come home from work, log on to GameSpy, get into a lobby and play with people. And then they changed it up by doing something more with more modern weapons and everything. And that totally blew everybody away. And now look where we're at. Nobody likes the World War II, World War I genre anymore. It's all modern warfare type gaming. And yeah, that's a close second for me.
Yeah. Well, you guys had the creative director for 8 years of Medal of Honor on your podcast when you had Chris Cross.
That's correct.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
He had some stories.
He's got lots of stories. EA breeds lots of stories. But yeah.
Yeah, someday I should release the uncut interview we had with him because I had to cut out like 45 minutes. We talked forever.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
We should do that.
All right, students, everybody please sit down and shut up. I'm between lobbies in Mario Kart 8, so let's make this quick. I am Podcast Daddy Blue, your substitute for today, and this is Gaming History 101. Obviously, Professor Rybread isn't here, but he did leave his lesson plans, so let's get started. Today we'll be discussing one of the first amusement park thrill rides to be based, well, loosely, on a video game franchise. Our topic today is Tomb Raider: The Ride.
Professor Rybread had a movie lined up.
No, there's another class as the TV, so. Amusement parks have been a large part of the zeitgeist for well over a century, even dating back to traveling rides available to patrons of temporary fairs in the Middle Ages. A static park that was open to amusement seekers began to emerge in the 19th century in Europe. Rides at the time were fairly rudimentary and often extremely dangerous, as safety was less of a concern for park operators. One of the most renowned places to visit an amusement park in the late 19th and early 20th century in the U.S. was that of Coney Island, just outside of New York City. These parks brought massive amounts of paying customers to their doors, and naturally, many more places sought to emulate the success of the parks in their section of the country. One such place was a park called Ohio Grove, the Coney Island of the West. Yes, that was the actual name of the place, located in Cincinnati, Ohio. Ohio Grove was a massive success and continued operations until 1971, where they closed their doors and moved most of the rides to an adjacent park 10 miles away, known as Kings Island, that had just opened up and sought to revitalize the nostalgia of Coney Island. Yes, that eventually just changed the name to Coney Island, as Coney Island at this time was run down and not seeing the numbers they once had. Kings Island would go on to revitalize the excitement around amusement parks in the area, often bringing in rides that were intended to break records and draw in thrill seekers. Kings Island operated under the Taft Broadcasting Group from 1972 to 1992, when it was bought out by Paramount Communications. Yes, that Paramount that made movies like The Godfather and Face Off. In the 90s, Disney and Universal were using their IPs, slapping them on rides at their parks, and drawing in customers who wanted to experience their favorite movies in ride form. Therefore, Paramount said, hey, why not us? And decided to buy a number of parks, including Canada's Wonderland and Kings Island. In the late 1990s, Paramount had purchased the rights to the video game franchise Tomb Raider and produced their own movie starring Angelina Jolie. The movie was a successful one, despite deviating quite a bit from the true nature of the games. This meant that Paramount had a successful IP on their hands that would draw in fans of the movie and the games to their parks, and decided to invest heavily in developing and marketing a ride. In the true nature of the games, they decided that they were going to keep the style of the ride a secret until the first patrons actually rode it, even making the choice of secrecy part of the marketing for the ride. So what kind of ride would you expect a Tomb Raider-themed amusement to be? Discuss.
Indiana Jones. I mean, that's the only answer I have. I was immediately thinking the whole time, I'm like, it has to just be an Indiana Jones ride.
The Indiana Jones ride, or yes, triangles, and like the Jurassic Park ride as well.
Oh yeah, Big Thunder Mountain.
Well, Paramount gave the ride the full Disney treatment with elaborate settings, providing guests with experiences and visuals even as they queued up to ride. Atmospheric music, some sampling the movie score, played throughout the plaza and into the queue. Upon entering the building, guests found themselves walking on catwalks over artifacts and rubble while passing under ceilings supported by a seemingly temporary bamboo structure. A large antechamber featuring large stone monkey warrior statues from the film sectioned off one cycle's worth of guests into 3 rows. As the ride's original score intensified, ancient gears could be heard tumbling into place as a light aligned to illuminate the triangle of light featured on the elaborately carved door located in front of the riders. Once the light was aligned, the door began to slide open with accompanying sound and fog effects, allowing guests to enter the pre-show room. The pre-show room featured the statue of Brahma used in the film and a large oval projection screen that raised out of the altar beneath the statue. A video played to explain the foundation of Lara Croft Tomb Raider, establishing the ride's storyline to be centered around the Triangle of Light, an ancient artifact capable of controlling time, which is sought by Croft in the film. Once the pre-show video had ended, the entire left wall of the room rose, revealing the secret entrance to the 60-foot-tall altar chamber of the god Shiva, and allowing riders to board the vehicle, maintaining the same rows from the prior room. So what kind of vehicle was it? A roller coaster? A free-roaming dark ride? No, it was a giant top spin. You know, one of those rides that has you sitting on a bar that spins around a pivot arm at breakneck speeds as it simultaneously lifts riders in a circular motion?
Barf.
The ride itself was massively successful and drew in crowds and lines for years to come. People often remarked that they liked the immersion of the ride provided, as the lava pit you were suspended over would shoot jets of water at guests. Now, sadly, the ride would have a very short lifespan from 2002 to 2008. Not because it wasn't drawing in crowds, but because Paramount was no longer looking to stay in the amusement park business and sold off Kings Island and pulled their IPs from the park. The ride was rebranded as The Crypt, stripped of much of the Tomb Raider iconography and pre-show elements. Lasting only 3 years as The Crypt, the ride was eventually torn down and replaced by a lame haunted house that still exists today.
Haunted house is cheaper.
Yes. So in summation, Tomb Raider the Ride is still considered by many who wrote it to be one of the best rides at Kings Island and lives on in their hearts today. Nowadays, we are seeing more and more amusement parks and rides, or even whole parks based on video game IPs, which begs the question, could we see another Tomb Raider ride in the future? Only time will tell. Thank you for attending today's Gaming History 101. Just as a reminder, if you have ideas for a story or topic you'd like to hear, send us a message at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com, and we might feature your suggestion. I never went on Tomb Raider teacups, but I'm okay with that.
TTCs?
Yeah, TTCs.
I would have liked to see the theming. I mean, it sounds like they did really good with the facade and the immersion, but it would be kind of a letdown to be like, oh yeah, you're just going to spin around now. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Now you can't even look at anything because some asshole in the cup with you is just going to be spinning it nonstop.
Yeah, I know. So wait, is it one of those like teacup rides, or is it one of those where like what they call like dropout, where it like spins so fast it pins you to the wall and then the floor drops down?
Nope.
Yeah,
nope.
those are a big old nopers for me too.
As it simultaneously lifts riders in a circular motion.
Yeah, I think it's like one of those.
So it's like a giant gravitron?
Yep,
Pretty much.
I think that's it.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
No, thank you.
No, I rode one of those once, just once.
I would love to see a particular, maybe not rides, but a theme park based on video game IPs. Like I'd love to see a Metal Gear Solid section of a theme park,
where you have to sneak around and snap the employees' necks.
Yes, or you have the box. You have the
Here's
box.
your box, sir.
Yes, there you go.
You may not pass this area without a box.
Here, guide this Stinger missile through this maze and see if you can blow up this thing at the end of it.
Oh, you've got a family-friendly idea right on your fingertips right there, bud.
We always come up with the greatest ideas on the Gamers Week podcast.
I know.
Right. Silent Hill 2. Imagine the casting call for the nurses.
Yeah, Silent Hill World. That would be wonderful. Just fog the whole thing.
We need to hire 100 nurses to be present at the park at all times.
Find out where Hooters is shutting down. Yeah, no, I think video game themed, it was something that should have we're in the era for it now. I mean, video games are bigger than ever. obviously Nintendo World, and now Donkey Kong Land is coming out soon.
Yeah.
And those are just going to be bangers. I think that there could be, I think that's a licensing nightmare if you're going to try to mishmash different IPs together, because they're going to want the lion's share. So the operating park is going to be break even. Got to make all their money back on big old pretzels. I don't know.
Concessions and everything.
Concessions. Yeah. But I think it would draw nerds from around the globe.
The smells.
That's the worst part about Gravitrons. They smell like puke and sweaty socks.
Ugh, gross.
Yep, that's the two main fluids that soak into those walls.
Fluids.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I want an entire park to smell like a convention. That's exactly what I want to.
No. Oh, God. On that note, I think we should wrap up this episode.
Fair enough.
Now that all the listeners have already turned it off.
On fluids and smells, let's move on.
Thank you for listening to episode 112 of Gamers Week Podcast, and a big thank you to the Retro Game Club Podcast, Love Retro BTW, and A Gamer Looks at 40 Podcast for sponsoring this episode. Don't forget to check out their links in the show notes. If you want to connect with Gamers Week, follow us on Twitter at GamersWeekPC. Watch us on Twitch at twitch.tv/GamersWeekPodcast. Email us at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com. Visit our merch store at gamers-week-podcast.creator-spring.com. Or if you want to do it the easy way, follow the link in the show notes. And last but not least, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/GamersWeek.
Do it.
And finally, do it.
Do it.
And finally, since you made it all the way to the end of this episode, please leave us a rating and a review to let us know how we did. We really do value your feedback. While you're there, consider subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, even the Husqvarna automatic lawnmower.
Available soon in a new free update.
Sanity, thanks again for coming on the show and hanging out with us tonight. We really appreciate you coming back as a return guest. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about your podcast and where they can find you?
Absolutely. I have pretty much abandoned Twitter anymore. So I'm not really on there. You can't really find anything new for me there.
Smart.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But yes, you can find us at It's Virtually a Podcast on Twitch, and you can check us out. It's got the schedule there. And if you'd like to drop in and say, hey, it's we have a small dedicated crowd. We get some extra views and commentary when we do post it later on YouTube. But, we'd rather catch people live because we'd like to interact with the audience. And it's a lot of it is like, oh God, why are you showing this? This is terrible. So please come join us. It's a great time. The fluids will continue there.
Yeah, bring your unsea juice.
No.
Yeah, yes, indeed. But thank you guys. Thanks for having me. It's always a great time. I have a blast talking with you guys, and it's always a good time. So I'm always happy to come and help out whenever possible.
Definitely. And what day of the week can they find your podcast?
Mondays and Thursdays, 6 p.m. PST. Let's get weird, Donnie. Let's get weird.
Weird with no beard.
That's it. Bring it full circle, baby. There you go.
I like it.
Yes.
Hey, just so you guys know, the three of us right now, we don't have beards.
Oh my God.
You don't know me.
Wait, you said you were saving solidarity.
Maybe I was lying.
Deceiver. Yes.
Oh.
I worked so hard on this beard,
Like a dwarven woman.
Yes.
She has waited her whole life. That's dwarven. Oh, so classy.
On that note, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night and good luck.
You asked for a different kind of pole. Would you like to know more about the pole your mom dances on?
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut, patrons with benefits. This is the unscripted, patron-only bonus cast with less editing and more dirty jokes. We don't know where the conversation will go, but we're sure it will be weird.
This fish just went right on my nipple, and I'm just like,
I Google Street Fighter 6. The first search result that comes up is people think they can see Ryu's in the Street Fighter 6 reveal.
Listen up here, kids. You're not going to want to get one of those VD STDs things, right? Make you fall off. When you go, grab a pro. You'll be doing it for America.
That was perfect.
If you want to hear weekly episodes of our patron-only bonus cast, join us at patreon.com/gamersweek.